This court's now in session. Please be seated.
Your Honor, for the purpose of the record, we return back to the trial of Commonwealth versus Lindsay Clancy. All parties are present, including the defendant and including the 18 jurors.
All right, we will now return to the case on trial. Attorney Buckingham, please.
Thank you. Ms. Hartnett, I just want to go back for 1 second to the night of January 24th at 47 Summer Street and show you one additional photograph, if that's okay.
Sure.
Is this familiar to you?
Yes, it is.
And is this an area depicted in the bedroom of the home at 47 Summer Street, that area where you noted later with tape stain E?
Correct.
Okay, and you observed on that particular night the knife that was located on that nightstand?
Yes, I did.
All right, that may be admitted.
And showing you now on the screen, it's been marked as Exhibit 170. You're aware that the knife depicted in this photograph was collected from 47 Summer Street on January 24th, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, going back to where I think we left off before the break, we were talking about returning to the home on June 15th of 2023. And that you examined some stains on the shingles on the outside of the house. Do you recall that line of questioning?
Yes, I do.
In addition to marking the stains, did you collect anything from the area of the rear of the house on June 15th related to stains B, C, and D?
Yes, I did.
I'm just going to show you some items. You want to take a look at the items that are in those bags.
Let me take them out of the bags.
If just so that you can examine them. In these bags, first the one labeled shingle with stain B, then the one labeled shingle with stain C, and then the third shingle with stain D. Are these the shingles that you observed those stains on June 15, 2023?
Yes, they are.
I would move to admit these 3 items as the next.
All right, they may be admitted. And Ms. Hartnett, fair to say those shingles were then collected, brought back to the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab for further analysis?
Yes, I also collected swabs at the scene from each of those shingles, in addition to collecting the shingles themselves.
Now, turning to your other role at the lab, working in the criminalistics unit, did you also perform criminalistics testing in relation to this case?
Yes, I did.
And fair to say, for items that were collected from the home at 47 Summer Street on January 24th, 2023, you did some confirmatory testing on several of those items.
Yes, that's correct.
And what items did you do confirmatory testing on?
I performed confirmatory testing on some of the swabs that were collected from the home. I believe those swabs collected from stain A. I would have to check my notes specifically for the stains.
That's okay. Let's just
kind of go through some of the areas of the house first. So as far as the stains that we discovered or that we talked about previously, stain A on the basement floor, that was item 3-3. Stain B on the bedroom floor, that cluster, that's items 3-4, correct?
Correct.
Stain D from the bedroom windowsill, that was labeled as item 3-6, correct?
Correct.
And stain F, which is the snow on the backyard, or the stain on the snow in the backyard, item 3-8. Those were all confirmed at the laboratory to be blood.
That is correct.
And again, we talked briefly earlier about the fact that there's always a screen, and then that you can't make a determination of the substance until a confirmatory test is done, correct?
That's correct.
And so that is a process that you do at the lab.
Yes, correct.
And as far as the knife that we just were referring to, the knife that was recovered, what's in Exhibit 170, you were able to examine that further, or swabs taken from that knife at the lab.
That's correct.
And confirmed that what you say was stain A on the blade of that knife was confirmed to be blood.
Yes, I performed the screening test as well as the confirmatory test for blood on stain A at the laboratory.
Now, once you are in the laboratory and determine that blood is confirmed on these particular items, or that there is biological substance present, do you do anything to prepare those items for further testing in a different unit of the lab?
Yes, I do.
What do you do?
For the swabs that I collected and for the swabbings that I took of the knife, I then cut them up, give them a separate item number, and preserve those for potential DNA analysis. Half of the samples also preserved for any future analysis if necessary.
And fair to say it's a different unit at a different part of the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab that conducts DNA testing, correct?
That's correct.
And so if some of the items that you examined are selected for further testing, those swabbings or further snippets would then be sent to the DNA unit.
That's correct.
Now, as it pertains to some of the other items that were collected from 47 Summer Street, you also did some work on 3 exercise bands, correct?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do in relation to the 3 exercise bands that were collected?
After documenting them in the lab, I took samples from each of the ends of the exercise bands, as well as a separate sample from the center of each of the exercise bands.
Okay. And so the first band, which is identified as a yellow exercise band, had previously been identified as item 2-2, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so did you take samples from both the ends in the middle of that item?
Yes, I did.
I'm just going to approach with a photograph. Is that familiar to you?
Yes, it is.
And in addition to actually taking the swabs, you also document the item that you're analyzing and reviewing, correct?
Yes. Prior to performing any kind of collection or testing on an item, I'll photograph it.
And so this particular photograph, is it fair to say this is a photograph from your work at the laboratory with the yellow exercise band?
Yes, it is.
I would move to admit this is the next exhibit.
All right, that may be admitted. All right, thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Hartnett, now showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 174, the yellow exercise band. You indicated that you took swabbings from around the handle areas, correct?
Correct.
And then the middle of the band.
That's correct.
Why didn't you swab the whole thing?
The purpose of the collection was to potentially determine who was holding or had contact with the ends of the band and who potentially had contact with the center of the band, potentially those being 2 different individuals. So I collected samples separate from the ends as in addition to the center.
And was your approach on each one of the bands the same?
Yes, it was.
Okay. So the second band, which is the black band that was identified as item 2-3, you took samples again from the ends and the middle?
That's correct.
And I'm just going to show you another photograph. And is that the black band you examined?
Yes, it is.
Now we make sure that this is the next exhibit.
That may be admitted.
Exhibit 175. And finally, the blue exercise band that was recovered from the home at 47 Summer Street, that was identified as item 2-4. Did you examine it in the same fashion, swabbing the ends in the middle?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Is that a photograph of the band when you were examining it at the lab?
Yes, it is.
Next.
All right, that may be admitted.
And as far as the swabbings that you took of each of these 3 exercise bands, what did you do with the swabbings after you swabbed the items?
I allowed the swabs to air dry. I gave them each a item number, and then I preserved half of each of the swabs for additional testing in the DNA unit.
And as far as your knowledge of some of the additional testing, you're aware that the exercise band swabbings were sent forward to the DNA unit for additional analysis, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cross?
Thank you. Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, Ms. Hartnett, you initially went into the home at 47 Summer Street. At what time that day? Was it in the evening, early morning hours?
It was the early morning hours of January 25th.
Okay. And you had somebody that was learning underneath you that was with you at that time?
That's correct.
And you went into the various areas of the house. You went down to the basement, right?
Yes.
You talked about the stain that you had taken swabs of that was on the carpet down in the basement, right?
That's correct.
And you went upstairs, and then ultimately you ended up in the bedroom, and you made observations of a number of blood drops, or red, brown, as you put it, drops on the floor, right?
There were numerous red brown stains on the floor, yes.
On the clothing, the bedclothes that were on the bed as well, right?
I do not believe I documented red brown stains on the clothing. It may have been there. I don't know if I have that in my notes.
How about the, on top of the nightstand, there was the knife that counsel had talked about, correct?
Yes, correct.
And then you look at the window, and there was a red-brown stain on the right-hand side of the window as you're looking outside from inside in the bedroom, right?
Yes, correct.
And you made observations of some of the markings on the shingles that were directly below the window and directly above where the red-brown stains were found in the snow underneath.
Yes, that's correct.
Your confirmatory tests, and first of all, what you do is you have your screening tests. Back in the day, they used to, you use the orthotolidine. Do you still use that?
No, not this time.
Now you use what, crystalline? What do you use now?
It's called Castlemeyer.
And the Tasselmeyer, basically, as I say, back in the day, it used to be that you would have vegetation that could give you a false positive, right?
Correct.
Certain chemicals could give you a false positive.
Correct.
Animal feces could give you a false positive, right?
Depending on what's in them, possibly, yes.
The test now that you have, the confirmatory test, is a lot more accurate, if you will, but still, nevertheless, I said confirmatory screening, but nevertheless, you still have to do a confirmatory test, right?
That's correct.
And back in the day, it used to be Takayama test. What do you do for confirmatory now?
We use a test card, a human trace test card, which is something similar to a COVID test or a pregnancy test, where you just put the liquid in the beginning of the card, the liquid runs up, and if there's 2 lines, it's positive, and if it's only 1 line, it's negative.
That's not the Teichmann test, is it?
No.
Okay, so the confirmatory test that you use, that's a color test, though, right?
It's a immunographic test. It's an assay, so it's not really a color test where you add the drops to the swab and it's going to change color.
Okay.
It's a reaction that's happening within the test card between antibodies and antigens that produce either 2 lines or 1 line.
So let's take, for example, in the bedroom on the floor that counsel had shown you a number of drops that were in the floor between the bed and that mirror, right? You did confirmatory testing on that?
I did back at the lab. I screened it at the scene and then, confirmed it back at the lab.
And that confirmed that it was human blood?
It confirms that it's blood and it indicates human blood. There is
you have to do a precipitin test or something to determine if it's animal blood or human blood, right?
So the test card that we use indicates that it confirms that it's blood. It indicates human blood because it may react with primate blood. So it's not specific to human
The
blood.
bottom line is that you, as a chemist working for the Mass State Police investigating this case, are confirming that the stains that are on the floor of the bedroom, all the blood, all those stains are in fact human blood, right?
I'm confirming the single stain that I collected from is blood.
All right, and when you say the single stain, that would be you use the Q-tip and you swab it, and that would be from all of the stains that were all over the place on the floor, right?
I did not swab each individual stain. I took a swab from each collection of stains.
Okay, and that was human blood, confirmatory, indicating it was human, right?
It was confirmatory for blood and indicated human blood.
All right. Now, one of the exhibits that the district attorney had pointed out to you was the mirror, exhibit 161. You remember that, the mirror?
Yes, I do.
You see those drops that appear to be going down from above in a downward direction? You see those drops? You tested those?
I do see the red-brown stains, and yes, I performed a screening test on one of them at the scene.
Okay, and you're comfortable that that in fact is human blood, correct?
I did not perform a confirmatory test on that specific stain back at the lab, so I just screened it at the scene, and that stain was not tested any further at that time.
It was what?
I performed a screening test at the scene. I did not perform any confirmatory tests on that specific stain back at the lab.
Well, there's no doubt that the stains that are depicted on the full-length mirror that we can see in Exhibit 161 and the stains that were on the floor next to the bed and the stains that were on the floor in front of the bed heading towards the door, all with the same consistency, right?
I didn't make any determination whether or not they were all the same consistency.
Human blood?
I did not make a determination that they were human blood, so based on the scientific results, I cannot say that they were human blood.
As a chemist and involved in crime scenes many, many times, would you agree that the substance that's on the floor and the substance that's in the mirror and the substance that's on the doorknob and the drops that are heading out of the bedroom, those in fact, more probable than not, would be human blood, right?
I do make certain assumptions based on the color of a stain, the size, the shape of the stain, that it could potentially be blood, and that would indicate what I might want to test further. So I don't make an assumption off the bat that it's going to be human blood. That's why we perform scientific testing to screen for blood and then to confirm it's blood.
Okay. So this here, you indicated was some type of insulation?
That's what it appeared to me. I mean, I'm not an expert, but it looked like some sort of foam insulation.
And it's a little difficult to see with the, see that there? Above the little orange, looks like a little balloon, but let's say it's insulation or let's say it's something for bugs. You see the red substance on that object?
I do.
See the red substance, red-brown stain on that window ledge or windowsill?
Yes, I do.
You tested that?
I did not test that specific stain, no.
Yep. So do we know if that was blood?
No, not at this time.
Pretty obvious that it was, though, to you, right?
It appears to be a red-brown stain on the exterior of the windowsill, but I did not do any testing on it.
Okay. And did I hear you correctly that it was 5 months later that the state police investigators decided that you would get the shingles off the house?
I don't know when that decision was made, but that was the day that I was requested to go out.
And then the district attorney showed you the shingles and envelopes. You opened them up and looked at them. And you did a confirmatory test on those?
I did not. I performed a screening test on each of those stains at the scene. I did not perform a confirmatory test on those stains due to the fact that the red-brown stain color was no longer visible. So potentially
It was degraded because of the weather, right?
at some point the red-brown stains appeared darker. They were no longer red-brown. So I thought that the material could be less, so I didn't want to use any additional material for confirmatory testing.
School, as a chemist, you learn how to testify, don't you?
Yes.
One of the things they tell you is look at the jury. When the lawyer asks a question, you look at the jury and you answer the question, right?
That's correct.
Right. So can you just look at me when I ask you just a little bit, a question. Would you agree that weather affects, degrades blood, if in fact it is on an object, and allowed to stay outside.
Absolutely.
All right. And then, you can look at that. And then you'd agree with me that what you noted appeared to be dark.
Yes.
It would almost be like bat guano for that matter. We don't know what it is, right?
No, I cannot make determination what it was. Like, I just performed a screening test, so I could not confirm it was blood. They just screamed positive for blood.
Do you remember there was a red-brown stain on the doorknob of the bedroom, from the inside of the bedroom going out? Did you notice that?
Potentially I noticed it. I don't believe I didn't collect from that.
We don't know if that's blood either.
Correct.
And how about the drops, the red-brown drops that were by the door directly underneath the doorknob? Did you test those with your swabs?
No, I did not.
That's all I had.
All right. Commonwealth, any redirect?
Just briefly, you were attempting to explain why you did not perform confirmatory testing on the shingles. Can you explain that to the jury?
Because I could no longer see the red-brown stain, it just appeared more of a darker stain, a lighter stain that I had previously saw at the scene. Given that material, whatever it was on the shingle, may have been limited, performing a confirmatory test is using up additional material to perform that test. So given that was already potentially limited due to the conditions and the time that had passed and the fact that I could no longer see the red-brown stain, I simply performed the screening test, and once that was positive, I took a swab and just preserved it. I did not perform any more testing in the lab on that swab.
And is that because you would need something to forward onto DNA if you wanted additional testing to be done?
Correct. I would have had to use up a portion of that sample to perform the confirmatory test, and I didn't think that was in the best interest of the case, given the fact that the material may already have been limited.
And you indicated that you had previously seen those red-brown stains in those same areas that you swabbed and the shingles were collected back in January, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Anything further? All right. Thank you. Please step down. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Buckingham?
The Commonwealth would call.
All right. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Yes, counsel.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Could you please tell the jury your first and last name?
Yes, my first name is Jonathan. My last name is O'Laughlin.
And can you spell your last name for the record?
Olouglin.
And what do you do for work?
I'm a trooper with the Massachusetts State Police.
How long have you been a trooper?
Hired in October of 2011.
And what is your current assignment with the state police?
Right now, I work in the Division of Field Services, and I'm assigned to the State Police Logan Airport Barracks.
Going back to January of 2023, what was your assignment with the state police then?
I worked in Crime Scene Services section.
And how long had you worked in crime scene services?
I started in February of 2020.
And when did you move to your new assignment?
I left crime scene in October of 2023.
So do you undergo specific training as a trooper to work in that crime scene services section?
Yes.
And what kind of training do you get?
So we did an internal training in the lab, the crime lab. A lot of it was, the beginning was reading about crime scene processing and fingerprinting, and then it would move on to doing mock cases, following other crime scene services members around to observe, and then it went on to do a competency test where you would process a mock scene, develop fingerprints, and analyze them. It kind of pulled it all together. And then that would go on to a quality assurance program within the lab, and they would determine if you were qualified to be on call.
And what things do you do as a crime scene services trooper? What are your responsibilities?
So we respond to all different types of crime scenes. At every single crime scene, the main thing you do at every scene, no matter what it is document the scene with photographs. Depending on the type of scene you're at, you may also document the scene with video. You may also sketch the scene by hand. Then also you may collect items of evidence to be processed later, or you may even process items at the scene. what you're processing for is fingerprints. You try to develop fingerprints if there are any. You can do fingerprint analysis and try to determine whose fingerprints are on the items of evidence.
And that can be done at a crime scene, but it also can be done back at the crime laboratory, correct?
Correct.
Depending on the item and where it was located.
Yes.
As far as your response to particular scenes, do you often go out to crime scenes in tandem with or with a crime scene response unit investigator, forensic scientist?
Yes.
And you indicated that one of the first things and one of the main things you do is document scenes. Is it best practice to be kind of that first in after a scene is secured to document the scene as it appeared?
Yes.
And how do you do that?
So when you respond to a scene, usually the town that you respond to, the local police department will secure the scene, which means they don't allow anyone in to disrupt the scene until you get there. Then you start with photographing the exterior of the residence, and then you walk in and just document the entire scene room by room as it is.
And after that's done, do you kind of go back through and highlight or identify in any way particular things that may be relevant to the investigation of
Yes.
the crime scene you're responding to?
Yes.
And how do you identify in the documentation items that might have some relevance or evidentiary value?
So some items might kind of be obvious if they're involved in the crime that are still there. Those you want to document further. And sometimes a detective unit or a member will ask you to document another piece of evidence that they would like collected or they would like further looked at.
And you indicated that with crime scene services, you respond to all different kinds of scenes and all different types of law enforcement. So sometimes do you work with the local city or town departments?
Yes.
And in investigations where a death has occurred, who are the primary law enforcement that you're working with?
So there will be local, and there will also be the county state police detective unit will also respond for any death investigation.
Now, when you are processing a scene or documenting a scene, do you do anything to identify and highlight the items that have been either pointed out to you or that you've seen that could have value in the case?
Yes.
What do you do?
So with those, we put what's called placards. And placards are pieces of plastic that have numbers on them. That way, when you're going through the photos, you can refer to them as placard 1, placard 2, and so on and so forth.
And as far as further processing the scene between yourself and the crime scene response, are some items sometimes collected by either yourself or the crime scene response unit?
Yes.
And when you collect an item, do you identify it in some other way?
Yes, when you collect an item and it's put into evidence in the lab, it's given a lab number. The lab number doesn't have to match up with the placard number. The placard's simply for your photos, and then the lab number is the number that will be associated with that piece of evidence all through the crime lab process, all the way through the trial.
And when you go to crime scenes for inside houses, for instance, is it oftentimes the case that you're processing the crime scene at the same time investigators are getting into a location with a search warrant?
Yes.
And so when that's the circumstance, do you photograph and document everything that you can?
I'm sorry, can you?
Sure, I can.
Repeat that?
That's a bad question. When you are with kind of the local law enforcement, do you document things oftentimes that maybe you don't collect and take back to the lab or the forensic scientist doesn't but might have value or relevance to the police?
Yes.
And in those instances, they're not assigned those same item numbers, correct?
Correct.
I'm going to draw your attention to January 24th of 2023. Do you recall going or being called out to 47 Summer Street in Duxbury?
Yes, I do.
And what was your role on that scene?
So the role was Plymouth State Police Detective Unit had been called out to what was reported as a homicide at that address. So we were called out to document the scene and collect any items of evidence that needed to be processed.
Now, in relation to this particular investigation, when you arrived there, had the state police and the Duxbury police already secured the home?
Yes.
And again, in this situation, were you arriving and going into the home at the same time that a search warrant was being executed?
Yes, we waited for the search warrant to be signed, brought to the scene, and then photographed the search warrant, and then we started documenting the scene.
And fair to say, in this case, there were a number of items that were identified by your unit by the placards.
Yes.
And if I tell you that you documented 8 specific placards at the crime scene on that particular day, does that sound about right?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Including a brown belt, some exercise bands, 3 in particular, a pair of red pajamas, a pink sweatshirt or a robe, a pink piece of clothing, a knife with a black handle, and a phone. Does
Yes.
those sound right?
It does.
And I won't go through each and every item because we've seen several of those items before, but just in particular, as it relates to placards 7 and 8, I'm just going to ask you to take a look at some photos, okay?
Okay.
So I'm showing you a photograph of placard 7. Is that familiar to you?
Yes, it is.
And what is the placard 7? What was that to highlight or depict?
That was a knife covering a red-brown stain found in the upstairs master bedroom.
All right, that may be admitted.
And I'm showing you another photograph with depicting placard number 8. Is that familiar to you?
Yes.
And that was a cell phone that was also noted in your documentation of the scene, correct?
Yes.
That may be admitted.
Now, as far as collecting of particular items on this scene, you're aware that there were several of the placarded items that were collected by crime scene services to take back to the lab.
Yes.
And fair to say the yellow exercise band at placard number 2, the black exercise band at placard number 3, the blue exercise band at placard number 4, the red pajamas, and the silver knife with the black handle were all collected.
Yes, I believe the red pajamas were collected by the crime scene response unit.
Okay. Do you recall collecting the knife?
Yes.
Why would you collect the knife as part of the crime scene response? Or excuse me.
There's no objection to any of this physical evidence being introduced.
You just, that's all right. I'm going to allow this line of inquiry just to kind of put things in perspective. Go ahead.
Thank you. Why would you collect the knife as part of the crime scene services as opposed to the crime scene response?
So we would collect the knife because that would be an item that would be processed for fingerprints at the lab.
And based on your training and experience, fingerprint analysis, is that something that should happen before any other biological testing?
Yes.
And why is that?
So fingerprints are extremely fragile. Anything that the forensic scientist would do would destroy any fingerprints that may or may not be, that may be on a item of evidence.
Okay. And so I'm just going to approach and show you an item. Is that item familiar to you?
Yes, it is.
Is that the knife that you collected that was located at placard number 7?
Yes.
Thank you. I would move to admit this as the next exhibit.
All right, that may be admitted.
Now, that knife was brought back to the crime lab to your unit?
Yes.
And in addition to the knife, did you also bring back the exercise bands?
Yes.
As far as your analysis of those items for fingerprints, what did you do to try to identify if there was anything on them?
So when we're examining for fingerprints, we're looking for latent prints, which are fingerprints that aren't necessarily visible to the naked eye. Therefore, chemicals must be applied to bring it out to make them visible. Those are non-porous items. So for those, we would use, it's commonly referred to, what was cyanoacrylate ester. It's more commonly known as superglue. And we put them in a chamber with the superglue. The superglue is heated. There's water, so there's humidity in this chamber. The entire chamber fills with superglue fume, so it adheres to anything fingerprint related on those items. Once the chamber is cleared of the fumes, you open it, and then you can now see if there are any fingerprints on there.
Is it fair
And
to say
that also hardens and preserves the fingerprints on the items of evidence for further testing if needed.
Okay, and is it fair to say that when you touch an item and leave some remnants of a fingerprint, it's the oils and everything that are on your finger that leave the impression on the item?
Yes.
And so are there things that can affect whether you actually get enough information to analyze a fingerprint?
Yes.
What kinds of things can influence that?
So it could be the texture of the actual object itself. It could also be environmental factors. If there's low humidity, it could be if there's the person touching the item might not have residue on their hands. There's also movement can affect fingerprints. The strength, the grip on an item also affects that, as well as they could be wiped off because fingerprints, like I said, are very, very, very fragile.
Okay, and so is it oftentimes the case that you analyze for a print and don't find anything of value?
Yes.
And so as it pertains to these items that you reviewed, the knife, the exercise bands, can you tell us what your findings were when it came to the knife?
Yes, the knife did have limited detail, meaning that there were areas of friction ridge impressions, which is that's what we've referred to fingerprints. Is the friction ridge skin is the skin that covers your palms and your fingers and your toes and your feet. The friction ridge skin is what leaves the impression on an object. So there was an area of friction ridge impression on that knife. Mm-hmm. So it was photographed further and giving an item number. Upon further analysis, there was not enough detail to do a comparison.
So when you photograph it for further analysis, why do you do that?
Do that in order to take a deeper look to see if there was enough characteristics or minutia to do a comparison to a known print.
So with a photograph, you can enhance it and look at it closer, correct?
Correct.
But after doing that, were you able to make any sort of opinions about that area on the knife?
Yes, there was not enough characteristics or minutia to do any comparison, so it was deemed no value.
And as far as the exercise bands, fair to say you also did the same and examined those to try to identify if they had any friction ridge detail or anything of value that you could conduct a comparison on, right?
Yes.
And was there any on either the yellow band, the black band, or the blue band?
No, there was not enough to do, no value.
And after you're done looking for these delicate fingerprints, what do you do with the items next?
So the items are repackaged and they moved on to the forensic scientists to do their testing.
And usually that's the criminalistics unit first, correct?
Yes.
Now, in this particular case, as we discussed, you were also documenting as state police were executing a search warrant, correct?
Yes.
And you did that again with additional photographs?
Yes.
I'm just going to show you a couple photographs, if that's okay. 3 photographs. That's the first one. It's a little hard to see, but do you see an item depicted in there? A square item?
I'm sorry, where exactly do you...
Well, do you see that this photograph, a little washed out, but it depicts an area of the home?
Yes.
Or an item in the home?
Oh,
The
yes.
dresser.
Yes. Oh, yes, the dresser. Yeah.
And then I have another photograph with a drawer open. Is that familiar to you?
Yes.
And then a third one, with an action item pulled out.
Yes.
And fair to say, when you're photographing things as they are found, you photograph where it comes from as it's being examined, and then the item in and of itself.
Yes.
So these 3 photographs, would they depict the location of a brown journal?
Yes.
Okay, I would move to admit these as the next.
All right, those may be admitted.
But in fact,
Basically, how long is your course that you take to become a crime scene technician for the state police?
So before you're certified for fingerprints, it's usually about a year.
So you're working in that crime scene services unit for a year while you're going to the school for it?
Yes, it's more of an internal training. You don't go to a specific school,
Okay.
but yes.
So you told us about your training, you told us about your experience, you told us about fingerprints, you told us how you seize items in the course of a search warrant, and then you told us about looking at the photographs and the items that would depict friction ridge, if any. But the bottom line is that you didn't get any fingerprints.
Correct.
And that you could have just said that, right? Just come on the witness stand and say, we didn't get any fingerprints.
Sustained.
So then you're talking about, as the state police investigating this case, you guys walk around and you have cameras and you take pictures, right?
Yes.
That's what you told us about. Well, how about when you're executing a search warrant? Are you supposed to be thorough in the course of your search for items?
I don't search for items, sir. Everything I do is,
Pictures, right?
yes, I document.
So if I went into the bedroom, if I found a bunch of drugs, in addition to the drugs that were found in the kitchen, and I found these in a nightstand with blood on top of the nightstand and the knife that you talked about, you would have photographed that, right?
Yes.
Never saw that, did you?
No.
I have no further questions.
Right. Redirect. All right. Thanks, sir.
So on this record, testimony here, which you should give to the court, you attorney, you have an outcome between the client. Thank you. You may have a seat, please.
Hi, good afternoon.
good afternoon.
All right. Counsel.
Thank you. Sorry. It's okay. Good afternoon. Can you tell the jurors your first and last name?
Hilary Griffiths,
And can you spell your last name for the record?
Griffiths.
And where do you work?
I work at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
What do you do there?
I am a forensic scientist in the toxicology unit
How long have you been with the state police?
for 21 years.
And have you spent your entire career in the toxicology unit, or have you worked in other units?
Initially, I worked in the DNA unit and then in the Office of Alcohol Testing, but I have been in the toxicology unit since 2011.
What does the toxicology unit do at the crime lab?
We test biological specimens, primarily blood and urine and some other sample types, for the presence of drugs, alcohol, and some poisons to aid in criminal and legal investigations.
Where does the samples, the blood and urine, come from before it gets to your lab?
They could come from often hospital collections of blood and urine. Occasionally, urine samples can be collected from a defendant at a police station. Also, we receive samples from the medical examiner's office.
So normally it comes through some law enforcement channel, right?
Yes.
And sometimes through the medical examiner's office.
Yes.
You don't have any direct involvement in the collection of the blood or urine from an individual, correct?
Correct.
You're just looking at the blood itself
Yes.
or the urine.
Yes.
Okay, so what kinds of testing is done in the toxicology unit? You mentioned alcohol and drugs and poison. So how does the toxicology unit handle those things?
We initially screen samples following a particular testing strategy depending on case type. And we will screen samples and then confirm whatever is found positive in the screening using a second methodology or repeating the initial methodology using a variety of different techniques.
And when a sample comes to your unit, can you explain to us how the personnel in that unit divides up the work?
Yes. Our samples are tested in a batch system. So each analyst is assigned a particular task for the month. And then any case that requires that test during that month is performed by that individual. So often cases could need anywhere from 3 to 10 different tests to be done. And so different individuals will conduct each different test.
And for any given case or any different lab number, is there an analyst that's kind of assigned at the end of it all to digest or analyze all of the data?
Yes. When all of the testing is completed for a case, an analyst takes responsibility for that case, and they will review all of the raw data that's generated by the different analysts involved. They'll review the case specific information, like the police report, the documentation on the evidence itself. They'll assess the case as a whole, and they'll generate a report containing their findings.
And do you receive some sort of specialized training to be part of the toxicology unit?
Yes.
And what training do you receive?
When I began working in the toxicology unit, I participated in approximately a year-long training program where I conducted literature reviews, attended lectures, to learn the theory behind the testing and the testing process itself, as well as the interpretation of the results. And then I practiced each of the techniques on mock cases, and then took tests to ensure that I understood the logic and the background behind the testing. I understood the interpretation, and I was able to test these mock cases and get the correct results prior to performing those methods on casework samples.
And you described to us that the work is done in a batch flow process so that you could be doing different things at various points. Are you trained to do each part of the process?
Yes.
And so ultimately you could interpret, but you don't always interpret with every single case that you work on.
Correct.
Now, in the toxicology unit, you mentioned that there are screening tests and there are confirmatory tests, and those are usually assigned differently in this batch process, correct?
They can be, yes.
What are generally the screen tests that are done when a case comes into the toxicology unit?
For the most part, all cases receive an ELISA screen, which is a very quick color screening test that looks for 8 different types of drugs. It's very sensitive but not very specific. So it basically says this type of drug might be present. Now go do follow-up testing to find out specifically what's present. They also all receive a general unknown screen, which looks for several hundred different prescription drugs, over-the-counter drugs, and drugs of abuse. Then depending on the case type, they can be screened for alcohol, and they can be screened, specific screening tests for GHB can be performed if the case type warrants that.
GHB, alcohol, I mean, really?
Overall, go ahead.
You can continue.
And then depending on what is present from those screening tests, that will guide the follow-up testing.
And with the follow-up testing, that's the process of going through that secondary confirmatory testing, right?
Correct.
And in some instances with the screens, are you looking to get any sort of specific information about a particular drug or substance that might be present, or is it just a determination of whether something is detected or not detected?
It depends on the test itself and the sample. The general unknown screen only tells us if a substance is detected or not detected. The general unknown screen can be run as both a screening test and a confirmatory test. With other tests, the screening test would just be qualitative, and we would determine if a substance is present or not, such as when we test urine, we can only determine or report out if a substance is present or not. With some tests, when testing blood, we can determine a concentration and know how much of the drug is present.
And are there limitations at your lab as far as determining concentration of certain types of drugs in blood?
Yes.
And so what happens when your lab might have screened or detected a substance but doesn't have the ability to give a concentration? What do you do with that?
We can, if the substance is confirmed, so if we've tested it twice and verified that it's definitely present, we can report it out as just detected, as opposed to giving the concentration.
Do you often work with other independent outside laboratories to do additional testing that you can't as far as determining concentrations or levels?
Yes, if it's important for the case to know a concentration of a substance that we can't quantify ourselves, we can send it to a different laboratory that can perform that testing.
I'm going to draw your attention to a laboratory number 23-01723. Do you recall doing work on that particular lab number?
Yes.
Do you recall what your role was in that batch process for the lab number?
Yes. I performed the confirmation method for benzodiazepines on the urine sample and the quantitation method for benzodiazepines on the blood sample.
And in order to do, can you tell us a little bit about the benzodiazepine? What did you do as far as that particular test?
When testing both the blood and the urine, for the most part, the same method is used. We use a solid phase extraction method to separate the drugs from the rest of the biological material. Biological materials can have things like lipids and steroids and blood cells and bacteria and other things that can interfere with our testing. So we use this solid phase extraction method to separate the drugs and concentrate them to be able to run on our instrument. And then we run them on a LC-MS, which is a liquid chromatograph mass spectrometer that can separate the different drugs and identify specifically which one is present and how much is there. When we're testing blood samples, we can report out that value for how much is present. When testing urine samples by this method, although the method itself can determine how much is present, we don't report that out because concentrations in urine aren't really meaningful. They don't reflect any concentration that had previously been in the blood. They mostly just reflect how much of the drug was present in the urine. So we don't report that. There is an additional step that's needed when testing urine at the beginning of the method, but otherwise both the blood and the urine are tested in the same manner using the solid phase extraction and the LC-MS.
And in this case, with this laboratory number, the toxicology unit was in fact provided with 6 vials of blood and 1 vial of urine, correct?
There were 4 vials of blood and then 2 vials of serum plasma, which had started out as blood but were serum by the time we received them, and then 1 tube of urine.
Okay. And as far as the urine goes, in your role in this batch process, you conducted that benzodiazepine screen, correct?
Yes.
And it was positive?
Yes.
And then the further testing, were you able to detect any particular benzodiazepines in the urine?
I didn't conduct the initial benzodiazepine screen through the ELISA method, which was positive. Based on that positive result, I ran the confirmation method on the urine, which identified the specific drugs that were present. And that identified in urine nordiazepam, oxazepam, temazepam, and lorazepam.
And based on your training experience when it comes to those substances, if it's detected in either blood or urine, does it mean that there are those 4 separate substances, or could they be derivatives of one particular drug?
Yes, each of those substances is available as its own drug. You can get prescriptions for them, you can purchase them. However, diazepam, that's more commonly used than nordiazepam, oxazepam, and temazepam, breaks down into those other 3 substances. So often when we detect nordiazepam, oxazepam, and temazepam, they actually are present in the body because diazepam or another benzodiazepine was initially taken and it broke down to those 3.
But as far as your testing is, when it comes to urine, you can't determine or quantify what it was or if it was one drug or multiple.
Correct.
Now, in this particular case, you indicated that there was also further testing done on the blood, correct?
Yes.
And was it as well for the benzodiazepines?
Yes.
And that was just because that was your role in the batch testing for this case?
Yes.
What were the results in the testing of the benzodiazepines in the blood?
The blood contained 8.8 nanograms per milliliter of diazepam and 20 nanograms per milliliter of nordiazepam and 4.8 nanograms per mil of oxazepam and 1.9 nanograms per mil of temazepam and 61 nanograms per mil of lorazepam.
And in your role in this testing process, you're just running the equipment, running the tests, and getting the data, correct?
There is some analysis of the data. I have to ensure that the controls performed appropriately, that the instrument was running properly, and make a decision based on the instrument data, what I consider to be positive or not. But then it's handed off to another analyst who generates the final report.
And in this case, were all the controls appropriate, all the equipment running effectively, and everything done according to the policies and procedures of the lab?
Ultimately, all of the relevant controls that were associated with the samples performed appropriately.
And what did you do with the information or the data that you received as a result of these tests? What did you do with it?
I put it together in a batch file that contained all the data for my analysis. It contained the case data for the samples that were run on that day, as well as all the control data that was run simultaneously, and other traceability type info, and gave it to another analyst who reviewed it to ensure that laboratory policies and procedures were followed, that the controls performed appropriately in order to report the results, and that the results were scientifically accurate. And then after that analyst agreed with my findings, the data was put into the individual case files.
And in this case, the reporting analyst for the entire lab number of 23-01723 was in fact somebody by the name of Nicholas Roberts, correct?
Yes.
And you're aware that there were other forensic scientists who did other testing for other types of drugs in the same test, but it wasn't part of your role or your batch?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Reddington.
So the toxicology report you're familiar with was dated February 24th of 2023. Is that correct? Do you have it in front of you?
I can refer to it.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, and you can keep it right there and look at it. And then you have, it makes reference to your lab number, and then it talks about the specimens that you've indicated, which would be the toxicology blood times 4, serum plasma, you noted serum plasma, and then urine, right?
Yes.
And when you say serum plasma, what is that? Is that just a breakdown of the blood, or is it that was actual plasma that was submitted? How did that come about as opposed to the actual blood in items number 1, 2, and 3?
We received samples that were taken for medical reasons, and the sample that was initially drawn would have been blood, but the hospital would have separated the blood cells from the liquid portion of the sample prior to it being submitted to our lab. So when I received it, it was serum plasma, but it would have initially been blood.
Okay. And likewise with the urine, correct?
Yes.
And you received all of these items in indicating light blue top tube, potassium oxalate, sodium fluoride. That was just so prevent coagulation, right?
Yes.
And then looking down further, it says on the toxicology blood, you make reference to, as you indicated, the 8.8 diazepam, the nordiazepam, the oxazepam, temazepam, lorazepam, and you're putting down, would that be nanograms per milliliters, NG/ml?
Yes.
Okay. And it's kind of hard to follow through with that, so I'm going to approach you. This is a copy of the blood toxicology report that you're referring to, right? Sure, of course.
Yes.
Okay. And this is the tox report for Lindsay Clancy, right?
Yes.
And it's making reference to incident date of January 24th of 23, correct?
Yes.
I'd offer this one.
Any objection?
No.
All right, that may be admitted.
Now, you can continue with yes. You then make reference to organic bases and neutrals, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me what is an organic base and a neutral? What does that mean?
That refers to So the line above that, the organic acids and neutrals and the organic bases and neutrals, refer to the results from the general unknown screen, which is another screen that was performed by a different analyst.
Okay, do you know who the analyst was?
Lisa Yelle.
And would that be with the Department of the Massachusetts State Police?
Yes.
Okay. And as it relates to the tox report, it also notes that, what is an organic base and a neutral? What does that mean, though? I just don't know.
This testing procedure separates the drugs present in the sample into drugs that are more basic in nature and drugs that are more acidic in nature. This test looks for several hundred types of drugs, and so in order to customize the extraction method to target certain drugs, the sample is divided into two fractions.
So in other words, it gives you a broader spectrum, if you will, of the drugs that would be in the person's sample of their blood, right?
Yes.
And that detected mirtazapine, right?
Yes.
Lamotrigine, right?
Yes.
Probably mispronouncing this. Quetiapine?
Quetiapine.
And quetiapine metabolite, right?
Yes.
As well as trazodone, right?
Correct.
And just tell me, what is a metabolite? What does that mean, quetiapine metabolite?
When we consume drugs, our body will break down the drug often into another molecule before it's being excreted. And sometimes our testing can detect these breakdown molecules as well. So this test detected both quetiapine as well as its breakdown product.
So there was, that would indicate that there was quetiapine that was in the blood as well as a quetiapine metabolite or a breakdown over passage of time.
Yes.
Also, just you guys check for everything. There's no alcohol detected, right?
Correct.
No amphetamines detected, right?
Correct.
There was a benzo screen that was positive, which we've already talked about, correct?
Yes.
Buprenorphine screen, none detected, right?
Yes.
Cocaine and fentanyl, none, right?
Yes.
Methamphetamines, none, correct?
Yes.
Opiates, none.
Yes.
Cannabinoids, that'd be weed, right? None.
It's the active molecule in there.
Okay. Diazepam, none.
Yes.
Nordiazepam detected.
Correct.
Oxazepam detected.
Yes.
Teramazepam detected.
Yes.
Lorazepam detected, right?
Yes.
And then finally it says organic acids and neutrals, none detected, right?
Yes.
And then you talk about, and that would be the acids, then you talk about the actual organic bases, and it lists all of the other items that we just went through. Trazodone metabolite, for example, so you have the trazodone plus the breakdown of the metabolite. You have the mirtazapine as well as mirtazapine metabolite, right?
Correct.
Lamotrigine, quetiapine, and the quetiapine metabolite, right?
Correct.
Now, you would also, in your direct examination, made reference to another lab that you all work with, apparently, or that you've had occasion to work with, right?
Occasionally, we have sent samples to another lab.
Okay. Would that be NMS Labs located in Horsham, Horsham, Pennsylvania?
NMS Labs, I don't recall the location of the lab.
Okay, but you know NMS Labs.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty well known, right?
Yes.
You guys, right? And was a sample of Lindsay's blood sent to that place as well?
Yes.
And were there results for that as a result of the examination?
I believe so.
Okay, I'm going to approach you with the report of toxicology report.
Got a sidebar?
Sure, Council, please say about it.
Nothing further.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Let me sit down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on.
The Commonwealth would call Lisa Yelle as his next witness, please.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You stop right here and raise your right hand to the clerk, please.
Good afternoon. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are going to give to the court and the jury will not Shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may have a seat.
Why don't you step right there, please?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Commonwealth.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am. Can you please tell the jurors your first and last name?
My name is Lisa Yelle, spelled Yelle.
And what do you do for work?
I currently work at a biotech pharmacy company.
Did you work for the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab at some point?
Yes, I did.
And how long did you work for the crime lab?
For 15 years.
And in January of 2023, what unit were you working with at the crime lab?
The toxicology unit.
And more specifically, I guess, February of 2023, were you still in that unit?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to draw your attention right to this particular case. We're talking about laboratory number 23-01723. Did you do any batch work on this particular case?
Yes, I did.
And what testing did you do in relation to the samples of this lab number?
It was a test that was known as the general unknown screen.
Can you tell the jury what the general unknown screen does, what it tests for?
Sure, that's a screening test for drugs. It essentially would test for hundreds of different prescription medications or drugs of abuse.
And in this particular test, the general unknown screen, is there a portion of testing in the lab for general unknowns that would allow you to quantify when certain substances are detected?
The general unknown screen is not a quantifiable test. It's just an identification screen. So you wouldn't be able to attribute a specific level of the drug, but just the identification that it was present or not.
So it would be a detected or non-detected situation?
Correct.
And in this particular case, items 10-101 involved a vial of blood that was submitted to the laboratory, correct?
Yes.
And you did the general unknown screen for the blood?
Yes.
And what were the substances that were detected in that sample of blood?
Would I be able to reference?
Sure.
Just to ensure that I'm attributing everything?
Yep.
Any objections?
No, of course not. Sure.
I can actually show you what's been already exhibit 183.
Okay.
Does that refresh your memory as to the substances?
Yes.
Okay, so fair to say it's mirtazapine, lamotrigine,
Trazodone
trazodone,
and quetiapine.
quetiapine, and the quetiapine metabolite, correct?
Yes.
And in that particular screen of the blood, all you're able to tell is whether they're detected or not.
Correct.
In your work with testing for those items and running that general unknown screen, were there any issues with the controls in that test?
No, there weren't.
Were there any problems with the equipment in that test?
There was a syringe issue, which means essentially if you consider a needle that has a plunger on the top, it would have essentially gotten stuck at some point within the batch run, which could run for 24 to 48 hours. It's a very lengthy run. So once the error is notified, it's a very simple switch. You just pull the syringe out, place a new one back into that same spot, and then you would restart your run from that point forward, including a control, just to ensure that the instrument is still functioning the way that it should.
And so would that type of error that you observed in the equipment affect the results of the test?
Not in any way.
And in addition to the testing or running this general unknown screen on the blood, you also ran a general unknown screen on urine, which was identified as item 10-201, correct?
That's correct.
And were those same substances detected in the urine?
Yes, they were.
And again, as far as those particular substances in the general unknown screen, or unknown screen test for urine, are you able to quantify it in any way?
No.
Is it fair to say that there are other laboratories across the country that potentially could quantify those substances?
Yes.
And so in this case, are you aware that there were samples of the blood and that were sent to another lab because of those positive tests for those substances?
I am not aware.
Okay. You weren't the reporting analyst in this case, correct?
Correct, I was not.
So after you did those general unknown screens in the blood and the urine, what did you do with the information?
The testing, every independent sample receives its own summary sheet where you document any possible drugs that were detected. All of the sheets are submitted to what's called a batch review, so a secondary person will independently review everything and ensure that they drew the same conclusions that I did. Once both people have agreed, all of the paperwork that is generated is filed within the respective case files, and then that's later submitted to an analyst at random to author the report and review the entirety of the case.
And in this particular case for lab number 23-101723, you're aware that Nicholas Roberts was the reporting analyst, correct?
Correct.
And any decisions on any further testing were likely made through him, in your experience?
Yes, it definitely would not have been part of the role for someone doing a portion of the testing within a case.
And as far as the particular substances that were detected, when you are running these tests, it doesn't tell you that there were several different drugs that were necessarily consumed by the individual, correct?
I don't know if I understand your question.
Well, are there certain substances that come up in these screens that could be attributable to the same type of drug?
There are certain, we would call them parent drugs and metabolites. Once you ingest a medication, your body will begin to metabolize or break that drug down. So there could be metabolites that are related to the parent compound of the medication that was taken.
So where there were five positive or detected substances doesn't mean that there was 5 specific substances, especially where there was a metabolite detected, correct? I guess that.
I'm not sure I follow your question again.
That's okay. As far as these particular items or these particular substances that were detected in these screens, you weren't able to provide any further information for final review other than they were detected.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Rathan.
Basically, as the court knows, we agree to this. We stipulate to all of this. As far as the blood, the chain of custody, the testing, you didn't have any problems with the quality of the testing, right? It was a good test.
It was a good test, correct.
Okay. So, and the results that have been described numerous times, there's the reference to metabolite, and there's 5 drugs. Doesn't mean there's 5 drugs. It could be 1 drug with a metabolite. All a metabolite means is that it's a breakdown of the same drug at some point, right?
Correct.
Like if you're smoking marijuana or something, you have carboxy-9 or whatever they call it. It can be some residue in your blood, right?
Yes, the way that.
From the breakdown.
Yes.
And the lab that counsel was referring to, again, would be is it the NMS lab? You familiar with that, NMS?
I'm familiar that that lab does exist, yes.
Yeah. And what does that mean? Do you know what NMS means? Is it like national something?
I'm not familiar with the acronym.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have. Thanks.
All right, Como?
Nothing further.
All right, thank you, man. You sit down. Thank you. Afternoon recess at this point. I'm going to ask you to come back 2 o'clock. There's another couple of witnesses. I'm not even going to make a commitment. But we'll have a couple of witnesses this afternoon. We'll kind of see where we go. Okay? All right, thank you.
Court, all rise. Jury, with the notebooks placed on the chairs, please.